Good afternoon, evening, whatever time you are listening to this. Gabe DeArmond here with you on State of the Tigers, our weekly live show, talking Mizzou sports. And obviously, this time of year, focusing on the Missouri Tiger football team. Now, about 23 days away from the start of the season, 24 days. I don't know. Math's not my strong suit. I just talk a lot. So, anyway, welcome in. We are going to bring our guest in here in just a minute. But before we do, want to remind you that every week we are brought to you by James Carlton, State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. If you have insurance needs and you live in Missouri or Illinois, we want you to get in touch with James, a huge Mizzou fan, a longtime Power Mizzou subscriber, and he wants to be your insurance agent. You can get in touch with him at carltoninsurance.net. You can give him a call at 314-961-4800. You can probably email him, but I doubt James wants me giving out his personal information on the show. So you get in touch with James one of those first two ways, or on Facebook at facebook.com/carltoninsurance. Now, after a hiccup or two, completely on my end, we are bringing in this week's guest, Tiger Radio Network color analyst Howard Richards, back for, I don't know, at this point, I just say like year 27, year 14, year 14. All right.
14. But it seems like 27. So it was like I never.
Yeah, exactly. It's season number 22 for me, I think. So a little more than that if you count back to my days as a lowly college student. But Howard, you've been around this program not just for these 14 years, but obviously, your playing days now back 45 years, I guess. Have you ever sensed excitement like you do for the season that's going to start here in 3.5 weeks?
It's been a long time. I think in most recent history, if you go back to probably 2014, after a successful 2013 season, there was that buzz. But this one feels different. You win a bowl game like the Cotton Bowl, beating a team like Ohio State. Seems like it's a game changer. And with the recruiting successes, at least on paper, it seems, man, like this is something that Eli Drinkwitz has been very intentional about building a program that he can sustain. Winning, staying at the top of the SEC. Because let's just face it, once you're wallowing at the bottom, it's hard to get back up there. Yeah, Mizzou's had some luck. They had some successes last season, but I don't think those are accidents. I mean, they worked to get to that point. They won the games that they should have won. Even the games that they ultimately lost could have easily gone the other way. But yeah, it's different. I was at practice on Saturday. And this time a year ago, I didn't get the same sense of enthusiasm or urgency. Not that it was bad last year, because it wasn't. Yeah. But I mean, he just seems to be really intent on making sure this team is ready to compete. Not just for the schedule that they're going to face, easy or hard, whatever the case may be. You got to play those games. But to get into that football playoff, I mean, you can just sense it without him even saying it. We put the Cotton Bowl behind us. This is a new year. We got new challenges, and we've got to be ready to face those challenges.
I think the difference is last year at this time, Missouri hoped they would be good. This year at this time, Missouri expects to be good. It's interesting you brought up building a program, because I actually wrote something this morning that had occurred to me. My questions about Eli a year ago at this time were, can he build something? Like, I know he can recruit. He's obviously – all these guys are good football coaches. They understand game day strategy and all that. But what made Gary Pinkel so good was through the early rough stretches, he told us over and over, what we do works. It's going to work here. We're not going to deviate from this, right? And through those first 3 years, it's easy, especially with all the pressure and all the social media attention, for a coach to think maybe, hey, I got to change this. What I'm doing isn't working, so I've got to get away from what I thought was going to get me here. And I think Eli stuck through it through the tough times. Now, the difference is Eli had the breakthrough, right? Gary had his in 2006, 2007, around there. It was like year 6 or 7. And then what Gary did was he sustained it. He had 7 years after that were incredible, right? So Eli's had the breakthrough, Now the challenge is, can you do this again and again? Like Missouri fans want to think they've got this established. Hey, we should just be in the top 15 every year. It's not that easy, man. You got to go do it 2 or 3 times before anybody's going to give you that.
And guess what? It's a lot harder now. Why? NIL, transfer portal. You can't take those things very lightly. You've got
hang on. Is it harder because of that, or is it easier because of that?
I think transfer portal makes it somewhat easier, especially when you're coming off a winning season. And you see the facets of your program that are exciting to recruits or guys that want to transfer into your program. You know, the type of offense they run, the type of offensive success that they had, you know, the quality of the receiver group. You got a quarterback that's experienced and should be among the top quarterbacks in the league. It's kind of surprising to say that, given if we go back a year to how maligned Brady Cook was, but he's there, man. He's earned that respect. He made the plays that he needed to make, and that's why this team was able to have the success that it did down the stretch. And a lot of credit goes to Brady Cook that I don't think he's actually gotten.
Yeah. The flip side on the Brady conversation, and really I would throw the Drinkwitz conversation in this too. Like, our favorite thing to do is, after we have all the facts, go back and say, ha, 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 you're stupid because you didn't see this coming. Nobody saw Brady Cook's season coming last year. Maybe Brady Cook did, but like, if you took those coaches and got them on truth serum at this time last year, I don't think they would have told you they thought Brady was going to be as good as he was.
You're probably right to some extent. Now, I will say this, and it is out there in the broadcast universe. I picked Mizzou to go 12-2, or certainly
last
10
year,
10-2
okay.
last year.
Okay.
And just before the Cotton Bowl, went on air in St. Louis and predicted Mizzou to win by 7. Of course, they won by 11 against Ohio State. Now, it was a feel thing, but there are things that I could see, and there's a little bit of luck involved. Most people don't believe it, but yeah, we've got it on tape from when I was now at the I won't say defunct 590 KFNS, but it's out there. It's on audio tape. And people looked at me like, you have no idea what you're talking about. But I did. Now,
I picked them to go 7-5. So
I know. It was just a feel thing. I had a chance to talk to the team in the spring before after spring ball of last year. And I said, look back on what happened in 2022. I said, essentially something like, if you don't have a bad taste in your mouth for 4 games that you dropped that you could have won, you shouldn't even be in this room. When you find yourself in those situations, because you can feel it, you can sense it, you've got to be able to take the next step as a program. I think the fact that this team, the culture, the family atmosphere really helps with what they're trying to do. I had a little bit of concerns about some of the crazy games that Eli does, but looking back, I think you have to keep these guys loose. You have to give them a mental break from the sport. Yeah, we can play and have fun, but damn it, when it's time to focus on football, we've got to be there. We've earned the right to go out and get a day off or go to the movies or play kickball, whatever the case may be. But, when we're focusing on the task at hand, and that's winning games, we've got to be ready from start to finish.
So what's harder? Because you've been on teams that have won and either sustained it or failed to do so, whatever. Is it harder to get where Missouri got last year, or to stay there because not many people, like, I'm not going to say that Kansas State took them lightly or that Tennessee took them lightly, but this game is now a huge game on the schedule for teams like Florida and South Carolina and, some of the teams that maybe this wasn't a huge game. So which one do you think at this level of sports is tougher?
With regard
to get there or to stay there?
I think staying there, because you can get there by maybe a fluke win or two. But programs that have been successful, let's just call them what they are, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, OU, they have whatever the formula is, they have it. The financial resources, they have it. They have the facilities. We know that. Let's just face it. When I came to Missouri in 1977, we didn't have a weight room. Shocking to believe, for people to believe, we did not have a true weight room. It was built before the 78 season. A lot of changes occurred under Warren Powers, who came in after coaching at Washington State and of course at Nebraska under Tom Osborne. But to me, those were the hallmarks of beginning to build a program, the things that you have to do, the bare minimum of what you have to do. I say it's a little bit harder now to stay there because you've got name, image, and likeness. I think with what Curtis Gregory, Representative Curtis Gregory, former Mizzou offensive lineman, the bill that he helped pass to make the NIL law, if you will, more favorable to the University of Missouri, I think has helped. The fact that you can get, once players commit early, that, they can start receiving a paycheck at that signing date or just after. I'm not sure exactly how it is, but
I'm not sure anybody's sure, to be honest. There are no rules,
right,
so
right,
it doesn't matter.
But I think it's attractive to a young man that, may be in a situation, every week, every month counts. And if he knows he can get a payday a little bit earlier before he graduates, before he enrolls, so be it. And he knows that at least is something that's on the table and something that he can look forward to. So I think, but also trying to keep your players happy, when there are tiers. It's almost like being on an NFL roster. Your quarterback is going to be the highest paid person on the team. But how do you sustain, how do you keep the other guys happy? That's a formula. Now, it's not necessarily etched in stone at the collegiate level because it just isn't. It's all so new. But especially early on, man, there were guys that were pissed off because one guy was getting this, and, well, if he's getting this, why can't I get that? You almost have to pacify your players. But I will say, how many players did Eli lose after the 2023 season?
Not many.
Starters?
Yeah, not ones that contributed.
Other than attrition, right. And that says a lot about what he's trying to build and what he's trying to do away from the field and from the locker room. I think the players have understood it and they trust him. Trust is a hard thing for a young man to put in a coaching staff. But it seems as though Mizzou, at least for the time being, has got this figured out.
Yeah. So Curtis Gregory is a good transition to kind of start talking about this year's Missouri team. On paper, this might be the best offensive line I've seen at Missouri. Now, I don't want to besmirch the 1978 team or anything. I don't remember that. I wasn't around, but in the last 25 years or whatever, I think the gold standard for offensive lines is that 2013-14 team with Evan Boehm and Mitch Morse and Justin Britt and those guys. Look, they bring back 3 guys. So to start with, are we underselling how hard it is to replace Javon Foster and Xavier Delgado from last year?
We'll find out. Now,
yeah.
What I'll just, and it's a good segue. Coming before last season, we know that Mizzou lost its offensive line coach to Purdue just after spring ball. And even at that point, I'm thinking, wow, whoever they come in is going to have one hell of a job because we just don't know, who the pieces are going to be. And of course, Coach Jones, who came from Houston and brought Cameron Johnson with him, through the first 2 weeks, it still felt like, man, this is going to be a long season just because of what we saw on the field. Now, maybe it was Mizzou playing mind games with the fan base and knew in and of itself that, look, we're not going to reveal our entire playbook to the rest of the world. We got some big games coming up. Of course, K-State just kind of loomed large out there. We don't want them to see, what we have in store. But I think during that period, and it may have been very helpful for this offensive line to play at the level that they did through games 1 and 2. But seemingly, man, from that point forward, they gelled. And I've watched Coach Jones, the offensive line coach, come in and just listening to how he talks to his players, how he addresses them, how he teaches them on the field. You grab a guy immediately after him, he has a mistake, makes a mistake, and give him that coaching point right then and there, so it's fresh. When you did this, this thing bad happened. Okay, here's what I need to do to correct it. So my next time up, I want to make sure I employ that coaching point so that it doesn't happen again. I liked his style, I liked his approach. I kind of wish I had a guy like that coaching me, even at the collegiate level and certainly professionally, because I think I could have been a better offensive lineman. You said, well, you're a first round pick. Well, yes, but even that's raw talent. I think I could have been a better player entering the National Football League if I had had better coaching. I may have been the top offensive lineman taken instead of the fifth taken in the first round. And it means, it's the difference between the money too. So
right. And I think Brandon Jones, I mean, and this is a statement because obviously what Jacob Peeler and Kirby Moore have done, but I think Brandon Jones has been Eli's best hire so far. What he did with that line.
Dude, and if people don't know, let's remind them now. You do not have success, especially in this conference, without strong, powerful, aggressive offensive and defensive lines. It just doesn't happen. You're going to be, at best in the middle of the pack, but more likely towards the bottom of the pack without good offensive lines and defensive lines. And all you have to do is go back and look at the history of the teams the last 20 years in this league, and the hallmarks of those teams: great lines, offensively and defensively.
And the good thing, and this is where we're talking about the portal, the good thing is Missouri isn't replacing Foster and Delgado with either highly rated high school kids or with kids that we go, well, they've been here a couple years and they have a lot of potential. They're replacing both of them with guys that have already played college football and done it very well. And Caden Green and probably Marcus Bryant. I mean, I don't think that job's necessarily locked up yet, but so that leads directly to the Cody Schrader question. And I know you, like me, nobody wants to minimize or undersell what Cody Schrader did in his story by any means. Kid had a phenomenal year, one of the most incredible stories we've ever seen in college football.
Yep.
But in replacing him, you've got to replace it. Like, if you have to replace a position, you want it to be running back, right? Because if that line's good, there are other people who can do what Cody did.
No doubt. And I will tell you this, blocking for a Hall of Fame running back in Tony Dorsett, you didn't have to have a great block because he was so explosive and had such great vision. I mean, I try to be as consistent as possible, but there were times, no one's going to make a great block on every play. It's just not possible. But he can turn a lousy block or a less than perfect block because he can read what's happening. If you set him up perfectly, he can read it and then exploit what's there, make the best out of a bad situation. Just with his sheer athletic prowess, his football IQ. That's why, if you look at all the guys that have been in the Hall of Fame, that have made the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they have that innate ability to be able to, make bad stuff happen, make good stuff happen out of bad stuff. Cody Schrader had the luxury of running behind a pretty doggone good offensive line. That said, I think, from what I have seen of Green and Bryant, Bryant just looks like a freaking athlete, man.
He's huge. Yeah.
He looks the part, making all conference in the AAC last year. I don't think at this point, from what I know, I don't think that there's going to be any drop off, and they should be a better offensive line. If you can eliminate the mental mistakes that Connor Tollison made last year, that's going to be a key. It's the mental part, the physical aspect of it. They look like an SEC ready offensive line this year, and even on the defensive side too. In the past, we couldn't really say that, beyond 2013, 2014.
So I think a lot of people looking at this team from the outside are going, well, they lost Schrader and 2 offensive linemen. They're not going to be able to run the ball the way they could. Well, here's what I think is missing in that analysis. I thought last year, if you look at those first 3 games, and especially the K-State game, The reason Missouri won those games was Brady Cook and Luther Burton. Cody wasn't lights out in those first 3 weeks. When Cody became lights out was when after that K-State game, the defenses started going, we got to back up, man. We're not letting number 3 beat us. So we're going to back up. And they did that. And Kirby Moore said, well, fine, I'll just hand it to this guy and I'll get 8 yards every time. And it's the give and take. So the point is, I'm not sure the running game has to be what it was last year because I think the passing game's got a chance to be even better.
I think you're right. But the reason I think that the running game can be better. Now, you may not have a league-leading rusher as an individual, because I do believe that you're going to see more of a two-headed monster, maybe even a three-headed monster with the guys that they brought in, Marcus Carroll, Nate Noel, and a guy that I really hope steps up. Should have played more last year, I think, was Jamal Roberts. But there's also who I think is another kid that's ready to take the next step. If they push each other. Here's the one thing that Cody Schrader did for this team. He set a standard that every Mizzou running back should have taken notice to. And I talked to Curtis Looper, the running backs coach, about this. He's like, Schrader may not have been the best athlete, but he was the best player because of his work ethic. He was a guy that had a mindset that was second to none. A guy that had been counted out on how many levels from trying to get into college, wanting to go to a bigger program, had to settle for Truman State, then comes into Missouri as 7 or 8 on the depth chart, and just quietly worked his way up. And what people should know about Schrader, there's an article that came out today from some 49ers publication that says Cody Schrader is a 49ers top rookie in training camp. Right. That says a lot, man. I mean, for a guy that doesn't have, the ideal physical attributes that you want to see, especially if you compare him to a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who shares the running back room with him, is a guy that can do it all. But the thing about Schrader and the thing about players, like Schrader, they have those immeasurables that you just somehow they don't add up. They shouldn't be a part of the equation, but they are. Heart, effort, determination. You can't teach that stuff. It is innate. And that's what I loved about him last year. But who's going to be that guy or those guys, whether at the running back position or other positions, that saw how Schrader's work propelled this team? I mean, he had not just his team, the entire state pulling for him. And you can't tell me that didn't matter. Will we have another Cody Schrader step up? I don't know, but I hope there is one that wants to distinguish himself from the rest of the pack.
So complete opposite side of everything we just said about Cody Schrader is, I mean, let's be honest, he's Missouri's best player right now. Luther Burton is a kid for 4 years who is, everybody has said he's got every measurable and he's an NFL first rounder and all that. A year ago, like coming off his freshman season, he did not have a bad freshman season, but I think, I said going into his freshman year, I said he can have like 600 yards and 10 touchdowns and people are going to be disappointed. That's exactly what happened. He had like 400 yards and 8 touchdowns and everybody said, well, no, it just takes a minute, man. It's college football, right? So he had that year last year. There was an interesting conversation on our message board, and I'm curious what you think, and it may be an answer of a guy that was, not 15 years ago, but 30 or 40 years ago. Somebody on our board said, would you take Burton or Macklin? My answer was actually I'd take Denario Alexander if he had someone else's knees. But, I mean, Luther has a chance to be the all-time leading receiver in school history here and to put his name in just 2/3 years in a conversation that not many people get to.
You raise a really great point. And the thing about Luther is that dude doesn't run the best routes. They're not sharp or precision routes. Doesn't even maybe have the best hands.
Didn't even run the right route on his biggest play of last season, apparently.
4th and 17. Who knows? But he got open. And that's ultimately what matters. And what people don't understand is the time that quarterbacks and receivers or whatever the position groups, when you work outside of practice, when you have a foundational relationship with a person or persons on your team, you sometimes resort to street ball.
Mhm.
And just because it's drawn up in practice one way, if you're smart enough, you can change things. It happened a lot. It happened to me on the collegiate level. It happened to me on the pro level. We would take a risk, but if we knew that we could do it better than the way it was taught or coached that week, shit, we're going to do it. We'll take the risk,
Right.
during the game, and
Coach can get mad if it doesn't work. Yeah.
exactly, and there were comments about it from time to time, but ultimately it worked. If it didn't work, we'd probably be picking splinters out of our asses. But
Right.
it you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to adapt on the fly. And I think good coaches, where 40 years ago this was not the way football teams were built. Coaches today, they adapt their systems to the talent of the players that they have. When I entered the league, it was round peg into square hole, right? You're going to do it this way. You're going to do it that way because this is what we taught. It's our system. It's successful. Maybe a little bit like Gary Pinkel did. I remember Lawrence Taylor, just stepping away from college football a little bit. LT was, and we know the history of LT.
Right.
When he came into the league in 81, I remember we played the Giants and he was like a wrecking ball. So we beat him the first game, but completely changed our offensive approach when we played those guys the next time. We knew that you can't let this guy just chase down plays because he's going to, make tackles for loss all over the field. You have to now run at him to neutralize him, similar to what teams are doing against Micah Parsons with the Cowboys, who could be, when it's all said and done, the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. But you've got to figure out how to neutralize players that can be game changers. This is what teams are going to try to do against Luther Burton this year based on the successes that he had. That's where the rest of the guys on this team in that receivers room have to be ready to step up. When Luther's getting doubled and knocked off his routes, somebody else better be ready to step up. I think they are there. I think they understand that concept. I know Drink does. I know Kirby Moore does. Can your players understand that as well? Being able to teach that conceptually so that they understand, hey, this is how we're going to beat teams. We know they're going to take away certain aspects of it, but someone else has to step up. If Drink can do that with this group, they can be a better team record-wise than they were last year.
Well, and there's a million different ways to be good at football, right? Chase Kaufman was great because he caught literally everything that was within his reach. Jeremy Maclin, he ran a 4.56 at the combine, but I remember somebody telling me the thing that makes Jeremy great is he's a step and a half. He's at that speed. It's so fast. What makes Luther great to me, nobody ever tackles the dude. So I went to his first game at East St. Louis. He legitimately never got tackled. He went out of bounds twice, but every other time he ended up in the end zone. And so eventually, there's guys that get Luther down, but it's usually not that first one.
Yeah, unless they're right on him. But, I think he's stronger than he looks. He's not even that big. He's what, 6'1", maybe? 200?
210, something like that.
He looked a little slimmer when I saw him on Saturday. It could be because of the heat, but he's got that, and he's got that ability to, anticipate being tackled, and whatever it is, that other gear or that elusive thing that he has to prevent guys from really wrapping him up. He's got it, and Mizzou's lucky to have it. Can he again take that next step though? Can he do even more than he did? Can he be that player? And I hate to make these comparisons between levels, but a guy like Deebo Samuel at the 49ers who can do it all backfield. Now, I don't think Luther has that type of size yet, but he probably has that type of ability. He can run back punts. He could run back kickoffs if you utilize him enough in that area. I know he's so valuable on the offense, but he's a game changer. Teams will have to account for him. But by the same token, this team has a lot of weapons, and so it's going to be, I think, imperative for Missouri to be able to even distribute the ball more. You got an emerging tight end that can be a game changer also. So let's just see, how much more football intelligence Mizzou's offensive coaches have gotten. It's going to be a lot of pressure on Kirby Moore to at least put up at least the same types of numbers that they did last year. But I think
Kirby got that 14 game head coaching audition going on this year.
He did. I think the team's going to score a lot of points this year. I don't know how good the defense is going to be. I mean, I think they plugged those holes with really capable players, but you just never know until you start playing games.
Right. So that's what I want to ask you. Other side of the ball, I'm going to give you three options. Tell me what the toughest thing to replace is. Darius Robinson, both on and off the field. Ennis Rakestrong, Chris Abrams, Drain as corners who basically just allowed you to do anything you want, or Blake Baker running the show.
I'm going to say Darius Robinson. Look at a guy that's played defensive tackle at Mizzou for virtually his entire career. Then they ask him to slide outside and be a starter at the defensive end position. Mm-hmm. He's never done that before. I mean, he's slid out before, from play to play on occasion. But to learn a new position in your final year, how unselfish of him to be able to do that, then be very effective to the point you make all conference. And then you're drafted in the first round. That a hell of a coaching job, hell of a job for recognizing a guy that had the ability to do it. But how about the unselfishness of a guy who worked, slimmed down to prepare himself to be able to do so and still go out and be effective and be a leader on this team.
And that's the thing. It's not just what he did on the field. Like everything we said about Cody, that was Darius on the defensive side. I mean, that was the guy that when they came out of the locker room, the other 10 guys said, I don't know, man, you go first and we're going to go wherever you go.
Exactly. He was that type of generational player. And when it's all said and done, if you look at the last 10 players that were drafted high for Mizzou on defense, he's in the top 5 of that for sure. Yeah. I think, and this is nothing against, guys like Shane Ray and Charles Harris. I think D-Rob is better, I think, because he's more versatile. He's an inside-outside guy. Plus, he had that leadership role, co-captain, but a guy that stepped up and was very not just vocal, but also very visible. He showed up every week. I mean, you knew that you could count on him to make plays and big plays when you needed them most.
All right, so Missouri fans get mad, and I want to be clear. Missouri does not have an easy schedule this year because they are in the SEC.
Right.
As far as SEC schedules go, Missouri has a pretty easy schedule. So all that stuff we talked about, like you've got the quarterback coming back, you've got the Heisman guy, you've got all these things. Oh, by the way, you also have a schedule that if Eli Drinkwitz could draw it up, this is about what he would come up with, I think. Yeah, you got to play Alabama, and that's not fun. You'd like to replace them with, Kentucky if you could. But you've got to buy before A&M. You've got to buy between Alabama and Oklahoma. I mean,
you do.
So it kind of all points to this. You don't want to say before the season, like they have to get it done this year, but you don't know how many times you're going to have the opportunity to line up like this.
And when you receive those blessings and those gifts like that, you've got to show you how thankful you are to receive them. And that's in the form of wins, baby. I mean, it just is. But I think, though, just from what I know, what you've seen, he's taken that approach. He understands what's at stake. I mean, if you just go to media days, I don't know if you were there or if you saw them. I mean, I didn't
watched it,
but I think you saw a complete demeanor change from Drake. He was much more, let's just say, subdued. I mean, he is still himself. He's going to make corny jokes and come up with these drinkisms, if you will.
Mhm.
But there was something about him that was different. I think he set a more serious tone and understands the pressure and what the expectations are of him as a head coach and of what his team is capable of doing. And I think that sort of set the tone throughout media days. And it became sort of the topic of conversation. I like how he, I like the tone that he has set, because I think that standard is set from the day after the Cotton Bowl, knowing what was at stake for him, but knowing, how far this team could go if they did the things that they needed to do to prepare for 2024.
For the team, I think he's handling it very well. From a selfish member of the media perspective, I like the cocky guy that does the lightsaber stand-up business stuff. But
and not to say that it won't happen. Yeah, I'm sure at some point we'll see bits of that. But at least at the outset, he's been a little more, let's just say, measured with the things that he has said.
Right, for sure. A couple more so we don't keep you here all day. So everything we're talking about, and hey, the opportunity's there and all that. What's successful for Missouri? I mean, to me, if you go 9-3 and you just miss it, you can be disappointed, but you can't call that like a failed season.
Not at all. No, you can't. I mean, people will, especially if you miss the playoff, because again, that's the expectation. If you look at 2023, the way Missouri finished, they would have been in a 12-team college playoff. So, be careful what you ask for, right? Because now that's what everyone wants to see. No one wants to see the lull like we saw between, 2014 and 2023. No one wants to see that anymore, right? I mean, because if
I mean, it happened to Pinkel, right? Pinkel would win 10 games, and everybody's, well, where's the next level? Yeah. No, guys, that's the next level, right? He's got to win one more game, maybe, but that is the next level.
Yeah. And listen, let's face it, the elephant in the room is Mizzou has not won a conference championship in how long?
1955.
or whatever. It's
55 years.
That's harder to believe, I think, than anything else. And if this team ever does it, if they do it this year, if they somehow win it, you get to the championship game and win that freaking thing, the state of Missouri will just become like it will be a destination, I think.
I've said if Eli hosts a home playoff game this year, before the opening kickoff, he can stand at midfield, grab a microphone, tell everyone in the stadium he hates them and he wants them to write him a check, and they will.
There's some other
guy
that said something like that. He can go out and shoot a bunch of people, and
right. Well, yeah. So last thing, but the comparison that keeps coming up, and I've made it a few times, is this is kind of like 2008, right? You're coming off that 2007 season where everything was so excited. They started season number 4, go 6-0, didn't have a single 3-and-out. Then they lose to Oklahoma State. And at that point, season was over. There was nothing to play for. They went to Texas with nothing the next week. The difference about this year, because of this playoff, you can go lose at A&M. Your season's not over. Now, you obviously lose some margin for error and all that, but there are going to be 35 fan bases going into the month of November thinking we've got a shot still to win this whole thing. I mean, just from a longtime fan of football, I don't care if you love the realignment. I don't care how many teams you think should be in the playoff. The excitement level for this I'm looking forward to this season more than any other, because so many more teams are going to be a part of this. This time last year, you could pick 6 teams and say there's no way anybody else is winning the national title.
You knew who was going to be in it, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, we all did. And with a couple teams on the fringe, and that's always been the case. This year, for the reasons you just mentioned, is going to have that extra level of excitement.
Yeah, it's going to be fun year. Kind of weird for Missouri fans. It starts in 3.5 weeks, but it kind of doesn't really start till October 5th, So, but I know everybody look forward to hearing you and Mike, and it's almost time again, man.
It won't be long, man. 3 weeks? What's today? Today's August 5th. yeah,
It's 24 days.
4 days. Yeah, it's insane to think how fast, and I always use sort of spring ball as sort of the countdown. Once spring ball's over, it's a sprint to the season. I try to get all my stuff done, that I'm going to do, get my travel in, because, once the season starts, man, it's that focus is there. I'm sort of with the team and how they prepare. I know what I'm doing, each day of the week. And I think that it sort of helps me in my preparation and what my expectation of this team will be this season. But this year, it's going to be more different than ever, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep. All right. Well, Howard, appreciate you, man. Thanks for spending so much time with us. I know people always like to hear your perspective, and we'll see you out on the practice field sometime here.
All right, my friend. Enjoyed it.
Right. Have a good one. That is Howard Richards, Tiger Radio Network color analyst. You can hear him obviously every game, however many there are, with Mike Kelly on the radio. Appreciate Howard's time and appreciate all you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Hit up our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800. If you're listening on the podcast, leave us a nice review, say good things, share it on social media, and we will talk to you next time.